Well, we're continuing our main conversation about DUI. College football just kicked off. High school football's been going on, of course, for several weeks. Professional football starting. And we want to try to be of service tonight. And I understand we have a call from Sophia in South Carolina on the line. Go right ahead, Sophia.
Hi. I have a quick question. If I take a nerve medication, it's like an anti-seizure medication, and I was to have a glass of wine with dinner and drive home, say I get stopped by one of those checkpoints or whatnot, would I potentially be at risk? Feel completely fine to drive, but I do take prescription medication and had a glass of wine. Is there risks there, or, what do I need to worry about there?
So I would say there's always going to be a risk to you. Anytime you mix alcohol and medication, you run that risk. First, I would say look at your medication bottle. Does it say do not consume alcohol and take this medication at the same time? Secondly, many people that have been on medication for years, they have reached a position of homeostasis where that medication has gotten you up to a point of being level of where your body should be. But check your medication label, see if it says not to take it with alcohol. Two, if you do get stopped, do not admit that you're on medication. The officer is going to smell the alcohol, is going to ask where you've been, how much you had to drink. He's going to also ask you whether or not you're on any drugs or medication. Do you take any? You do not have to answer that question. You do not have to admit you take medication. If you do, the officer is going to presume that your conduct and the reason why he stopped you is based upon the alcohol and drug mixture. And you can be prosecuted for either or the combination of the two. They can only in South Carolina offer you a breath test. Unless you blow below a 0.8, then they're going to take you to the hospital for a urine test. I would be very careful mixing medication and alcohol.
Absolutely. And most people, are going to know, kind of how they feel. If you have, one or two drinks at dinner and you're on a medication regularly and you're fine to drive, generally you're probably fine to drive. If you start feeling drowsy when you drink alcohol with this medication, there's probably something, you're becoming impaired in some form or fashion. And it's exactly the thing that, is going to make you a less safe driver. And the police are possibly going to be able to prove that. And that, gets me to, one point that I wanted to ask you about, Jim, is you've said numerous times that we don't have to tell the police what we're doing. We don't have to answer these questions. We don't have to do field sobriety tests. We can't stress that enough, not to just load the law enforcement officers with the evidence that they need to convict you.
Right. And exactly correct. The thing I would tell you is that when the blue lights come on, the officer is looking for evidence to substantiate his suspicions that you might be a DUI driver. Don't give them the evidence. You don't need to be rude. You need to be respectful. But you don't have to do the field sobriety test, and you don't have to answer his questions. But if they smell alcohol on you, and I've done this for decades, if they smell the alcohol and you refuse to do a field sobriety test, they're going to arrest you. They're going to take you to the jail and offer you a breath test. If you refuse that, they're going to yank your license. Then you're going to have your day in court. But I'd much rather defend a case without a breath test or field sobriety test than one where the police have that evidence against you. Now, talking about yanking your license, if you're convicted of the DUI, there'll be a suspension of your license. Also, for blowing too high in South Carolina, 15 or above, or refusing to blow, they'll yank your license for that. One is civil, one is criminal. I can win the DUI but lose the license suspension hearing, or vice versa. So understand there are two cases, and you need a lawyer that knows how to try both of those cases to win them. In South Carolina, I'm glad to take your call and work with you. In Georgia, see Sean, give him a call. I guarantee you he'll help you out.
And, you know, you mentioned about the scenario of what could happen and getting an attorney. Sean, let's say this occurred over this weekend. How quickly should you try to hire an attorney?
My suggestion is always to hire an attorney as soon as you can, or at least go and have a consultation with an attorney, because they're going to give you some basic guidance on some timelines that are in play. In Georgia, if you were arrested for DUI and it was either a refusal or you tested over the legal limit of .08, they're generally going to give you an administrative license suspension form that says your license is going to be suspended. We have to appeal that within 30 days. If we don't appeal that, there's nothing that we can do about it. It's just going to be suspended for the
Same as South
prescribed time
Carolina,
period.
30 days.